Hello, and welcome to Hedgehog Storytime, where I read my weird original fiction. The following is part of the Mayhem Cerebrum project, linked to the playlist in the description below. Yes, you have to read them all. No, that is not a request. This is the last part of Good Bitch, I promise. I'm sorry. The only reason this part exists is because the last part got too long. Originally, this was just going to be the end of part 3, but then I realized part 3 was too long. And I didn't want to make it longer. The other thing that I thought was very funny was on the Discord server last week, all of your reactions to the cliffhanger and how all y'all thought it was going to end in different ways, which is really interesting. And I'm glad I was able to pull off a good enough cliffhanger that there was a lot of discourse about how the story was going to end up. So I'm very excited to show to you how it actually is. So without further ado, here is You Can't Keep a Good Bitch Down, Part 4. Click. No one really processed what had just happened for a solid minute. Kay sat stock still, eyes squeezed shut, revolver pressed to her temple. She waited for the pain and dislocation, but it never came. Finally, she dared to open them. She was still in the smoky room, staring at Holiday's very confused face. As the adrenaline faded, Kay felt a little lightheaded, but she pulled herself together. Just what had happened? Why wasn't there a bullet in her skull? Tempting fate, she glanced straight down the barrel of the gun. And when she figured out just what had happened, she couldn't quite believe it. It jammed, she choked out. It what? Holiday lurched forward, his eyes widening. Kay passed him the revolver. See for yourself. He took it, looking down the barrel as well, and laughed, putting a hand to his face. All right, he asked her finally. How did you do it? Would you believe me if I said I didn't do anything at all? He stared at her for a second. His eyes narrowed as he stared into hers. You're actually telling the truth for once, ain't you? She nodded. Unbelievable. He shook his head. Unbelievable. So, she asked, almost feeling a little sheepish about the whole thing. What happens now? Now, he sighed. Now I'm afraid I must concede defeat. Clearly, you've seduced the blessed lady to your side. I'm sure we could play any number of games, and you'd probably win every one. Take the vault, take the donkey. He gestured to Dominic. It's yours. And tell that rat bastard you work for that he doesn't know what he's got. His somewhat ironic laughter was infectious, and for just a moment, the two of them laughed about it all together. Kay couldn't believe her luck. Things like this never happened to her. She hadn't bought his bullshit about Lady Luck. But now she had to wonder, what were the fucking odds? Still, she wasn't one to look a gift horse in the mouth. As far as she was concerned, the cosmos owed her one anyway. A hope that had died just a minute ago bloomed brightly in her chest. She had won. It was a bullshit win, but a win nevertheless. Kay was going home. For real this time. Well, Holiday, she grinned. I don't get to say this often, but it was genuinely a pleasure. The same to you. He tipped his head, although, if you'll grant me, I would like to add one small stipulation to your winnings. I suppose I can't really say no, given the circumstances. All I ask is to play with you again sometime. She giggled. I think I just might be able to make that happen. The underground level of the tombstone, because of course there was one of those, was significantly more plain than the rest of the casino, mostly consisting of lots and lots of concrete. It didn't really have to be much, considering that nobody who wasn't on the staff was really supposed to see it. Kay wasn't sure she was actually going to get here, yet here she was, overseeing the unloading of the vault. She had graciously allowed Holiday to keep just enough to get the hell out of Dodge, but it was with satisfaction that she was now watching entire crates of souls being hauled out through the enormous vault doors. Ultimately, Kay decided it would be for the best to let Holiday continue to think that she had been working for Bakke from the beginning, although she had no idea what she was going to do with all these souls if the bastard rejected her peace offering. Came a timid voice from behind her. Oh. Dominic. She was a little ashamed to admit that she'd forgotten all about him. He flinched a little as she turned. I guess you own my soul now, huh? He didn't ask, but she knew what he wanted to. What was she going to do with him? Kay thought about it for a moment, then held up her hand. A tightly rolled piece of paper immediately appeared in it. It was her contract now, after all. She should be able to look at it at the very least. Sliding the red ribbon off, dramatic, tacky, she unrolled the paper and skimmed through it. Wow, she said. You really did not read through this thing, did you? It was hard to, with Mr. Holiday staring at me, he mumbled. You didn't get to see it today, but he can be terrifying when he wants to be. Oh, believe me. Kay shook her head, sighing. I can definitely see it. She was going to pretend that she didn't consider keeping him, but ultimately that wasn't why she'd wanted it. Kay smiled at him devilishly, then ripped the contract in half. It fell to the ground at his feet, and Dominic just stared at it for a moment, stunned. Have a good life, kid. She waved and turned to walk away. It was high time she got out of here before Holiday changed his mind. Wait, he called to her. Why? Why do all of this for a guy you don't even know? Kay shrugged. Shits and giggles, mostly. Thought I might get Holiday thinking about it and distract him. Although, I have to say, you were a damn good luck charm. What do you mean? Let me tell you something I've been keeping to myself this whole time. She winked. My luck is always ass. Only difference today, as far as I can tell, was that you were there. Oh. He seemed to seriously consider the notion. She laughed and walked away for real this time. Get home safe, she shouted over her shoulder, wherever that is, and tell your mother that she better be as damn nice as you said. I will, he laughed. Then, too soft for Kay to hear, he glanced down at the nullified contract one last time and whispered, Thanks. Jack had been sure that when Bakke heard the news, he was going to be pissed. Yet after years and years of friendship, the man still managed to surprise him. As he heard the tale of Holiday's expulsion from Discord's airspace, he was giddy, of course. But when the messenger told him just who was responsible and that she wanted to see him, Bakke simply leaned back, grinned knowingly, and muttered, Of course she does. Kay had been sure that he was going to turn her down, so when the little toady emerged from the clock tower and told her to come on in and bring the souls, she would admit that she was caught off guard. But this was exactly what she wanted. So she unbuttoned the top of her shirt, mussed her hair a little, and took a deep breath. It was showtime. Well, well, well. His voice was the first thing to greet her as she stepped into the gloomy interior. Bakke was the only person she knew who could drop the line, well, 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 like a fucking supervillain and still manage to sound somewhat intimidating. Looks like the mangy bitch decided to come crawling back to my turf. Remind me, Jack, what do we normally do with mangy, flea-ridden bitches? We string 'em up, nice and slow-like. So, Laughing Jack was here as well. Of course he was. Now that her eyes had adjusted into the gloom, she could see him perched on the throne's left side, his yellowed grin barely visible under the tangle of thick, dark hair. Looked like he'd given up on the ribbon today. And, of course, there on the throne was the man himself, utterly relaxed, legs man-spread, eyes nearly glowing against the dark. You know, I could just keep all these souls, right? She raised an eyebrow. Hell, I could even give them back. Well, hold on there. Bakke's expression did not move an inch. You didn't let me finish. I said, usually. Just letting you know what would have happened had you come to beg and scrape before my excellence. You sound a little disappointed.
I am,
Jack chimed in.
I was really looking forward to it.
Could you give your dog a bone or something? Kay narrowed her eyes. He's getting annoying. Jack didn't do himself any favors by growling at her, but once he pulled out a switchblade, Bake held up a hand and he skulked back off into the shadows.
Now that you mention it, I am a little disappointed, he continued. But if I'm honest, I didn't really expect you to come back empty-handed. So,
Bake sat forward just an inch.
I hear you're the one who dealt with Holiday.
Well, I just happened to be back in town, and I saw how incompetently you were dealing with him, so I figured I'd better step in.
Right. Of course, no ulterior motives there or anything like that. Maybe from some other lesser bitches, but certainly not from the bitch herself.
Yeah, okay, I get it. She struggled a little to be heard over both of their cackling. After a second, Bake abruptly cut himself off.
Okay. That's all fine and well, whatever. But if I may, how did you get him to fuck off?
Well, you see, I meticulously planned out a grand heist. I snuck aboard Bourbon Street, broke into the high security vault, which is definitely a skill set I possess, and hauled the crates and crates of souls out all by myself. No, I beat him at cards.
You did?
Yes? She was honestly a little confused by how seriously Bake was taking all of this. I mean, he was a crafty son of a bitch, but nothing to write home about. A slight exaggeration, but the look on his face was priceless. Bake had been leaning forward, elbows on his knees, but now he sat back again, an agitated expression slowly creeping into his features.
Hold on, if Holiday beat me and you beat Holiday, then that means you're better at cards than me. We're not having that.
Oh, wait. Kay thought she just caught something there. Is that why you never went over there? You were afraid of Holiday outplaying you? Again, apparently? It seemed to occur to Bake for the first time that he had been speaking out loud.
That little bit of hot goss doesn't leave this room, because if it does, I will send Jack after you and I'll let him do whatever he's picturing in his sick little brain right now.
Jack's eyes lit up.
Promise?
That won't be necessary, she reassured him, assuming I get what I came here for.
Now that you mention it, that was my other question, he drawled, immediately back in control. Because I know the how, but I'm still a little confused about the why. Because the way I see it, you could have kept the souls all to yourself, yet here you are, offering them to me. So, to put it simply, what do you want, Kay?
And what if I told you I did it purely out of the goodness of my heart? Jack let slip a sharp, barking laugh, and Bake pointed at him.
That, most likely. So quit with the bullshit.
All I want is to be able to move freely around the city I call home without being hunted down like a wild fucking animal.
That's it, huh? You're telling me that you made this grand re-entrance, what with all the souls and the brand spanking new body, just to come back to Discord?
You noticed. She floofed her short red hair. You like? I thought this one would be more your type.
Oh, it definitely is.
She hadn't missed his eyes periodically drifting downward to the highest button of her shirt, which was not very high at all.
But you're dodging the question.
Well, the 1 in a million hope was that I'd prove so competent that you'd just hand me the keys to the city right here, but unfortunately that's probably a little unrealistic. Jack snorted derisively.
Delusional, more like, if you ask me.
Well, I didn't.
Actually,
Bake cut in, after spending the last minute gazing off into the middle distance.
That's not such a bad idea.
What? Jack sputtered. What? Kay added unhelpfully.
Now, this might just be a crazy fucking idea, but before either of you say anything, hear me out.
He held up both his hands as the two of them immediately opened their mouths.
I'll accept this pile of souls and let you back into the city, Kay, on one condition.
And here he paused for dramatic effect.
From now on, you work for me.
Shaking his head, Jack looked utterly flabbergasted.
I'm sorry, what, mate?
Wait. Kay couldn't quite believe what she was hearing. You're saying that after everything I've done, all the fucking trouble I've caused, you want me back in the tea party? Bake nodded.
That's right.
You know that's like an objectively terrible idea, right? Jack's near permanent grin had dropped off his face.
For once, I agree with the whole.
Like, listen, I'm going to be entirely honest, which is a lot for me. If you let me back in, I am going to try to take the city again. You do know that, right?
Of course.
Bake nodded, entirely confident. Not only that, but he started grinning. And Kay watched it expand to almost comical levels as he leaned forward.
And I'm so excited to watch you try.
She froze as she met that bizarre gaze of his. As always, it was somewhat inscrutable. Yet this time, she thought she might just know what it was. It was the expression of someone about to play a game that they knew they would win every time. It was almost a challenge. He was confident. She had to give him that. And as she thought about it more, she had to admit that the idea might just have some merit. If there was one thing she knew about him, or at least assumed she did, it was that Bake wasn't stupid, even if he wanted everyone to think otherwise. Kay was useful to him. She'd already proven that. Plus, if she was going to scheme against him anyway, he might as well keep her close so he could keep an eye on her. Or maybe she was overthinking this and he really did just want a challenge. Or sex. Probably both, if she was honest. Regardless, there was no reason for her to turn him down. He stuck out one of his patented left-handed handshakes, a devil's deal if she ever saw it. From his corner, Jack muttered exactly what Kay was thinking.
I can't bloody believe you're doing this.
Yet here she was, placing her left hand in his. Well then, she said with a wry grin, I'll do my best to put on a good show.